Hello, welcome to InfoFire, the fireside chat series from Information Matters. InfoFire brings together visionary thinkers and leading experts from diverse fields to share their stories, insights, and perspectives. It's a pioneering hybrid format that blends biography and scholarship, aiming to weave together the personal and the professional to offer a unique fusion of academic depth and narrative warmth. I'm your host, Shalini Aras. I have spent over 4 decades teaching and researching in the field of information, and I have had the privilege of founding two educational institutions: the International School of Information Management, India's first high school at the University of Mysore, and the Myra School of Business, also in Mysore. Today, we are truly honored to welcome a towering figure in India's technology story, Mr. Ajai Chowdhry, co founder of HCL. Our conversation will explore engineering India's future with hardware, with a special focus on indigenous electronic product design and development. Mr. Chowdhury's life and work embody vision, resilience, and nation building. As one of the 6 co founders of HCL, he helped establish one of India's most iconic technology companies. Widely known as the father of the Indian hardware industry, his influence extends far beyond the corporate world, shaping national policy on electronics, manufacturing, semiconductors, and the critical pursuit of self reliance in technology. He has been a strong advocate of design in India, not just make in India. Through his leadership of the EPIC Foundation, he continues to champion indigenous product design, while his philanthropic endeavors reflect a deep commitment to inclusive growth, education, and empowerment. Born in Mount Abu in 1950 to a family that relocated from Pakistan during partition, Mr. Chaudhry's journey is one of grit and determination. From studying electronics and telecom engineering at Jabalpur to co founding HCL in 1976 to advising the Government of India on technology and manufacturing policy, he has remained steadfast in his mission to build India's hardware ecosystem. Over the decades, his contributions have been recognized with some of the nation's highest honors, including the Padma Bhushan in 2011. Numerous lifetime achievement awards, such as the Cyber Media Business ICT Award 2013 and the Data Quest IT Person of the Year in 2007, CNBC India Innovation Award in 2010, and Lifetime Achievement Award by the Electronics and Skill Sector Council of India in 2024. Accolades and honors galore. He has received honorary doctorates from IIT Roorkee, IITM Jabalpur, and Chitkara University. In 2023, he published his memoir, Just Aspire, a compelling chronicle of his personal journey intertwined with India's IT hardware revolution. And in 2025, the Ajai Chowdhry Gold Medal was instituted to inspire the next generation of innovators. Beyond accolades, Mr. Chowdhury is an active angel investor, mentor, and institution builder, deeply involved in initiatives that shape India's startup ecosystem, higher education, and social empowerment. Currently, he is also part of India's National Quantum Mission, which represents the frontier of future tech. It's an honor to have him with us today. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ajay Chowdhry to InfoFire.
Okay.
Hello, welcome to InfoFire, sir. I'm very, very happy and then honored to have this discussion with you. So, you are such a pioneer in the world of, I would say, industry, in the IT industry and electronic industry. So, we are having this discussion on the we have completed our Independence Day yesterday. And in a way, your journey kind of, co-terminus with that in one sense. So I would begin
Yeah.
with your background. Particularly, I know that your parents moved from Pakistan, now Pakistan, to India with your siblings, and of course, you were born in independent India. So I would like to know what impact it had. Did it have an impact on your worldview, on how you deal with things? Could you start with that?
Yes, my parents actually left last moment, thinking that nothing will happen to them. But suddenly, they were surrounded by all kinds of people shouting this, that. So their friends suggested that you better move. And they were probably one of the last trains to leave Pakistan. And they were in Abbottabad. And my father was a practicing lawyer there, criminal lawyer. And my six siblings, all pretty young, were with them. And they left with whatever clothes they had on their back and hardly anything else. And my grandmother was with them. And they all got into a train. And unfortunately, when they got onto the train, it was so crowded that they got separated. And so some of the siblings were in with them, some of them were in another compartment. So they had no idea what was happening to them. In any case, they sort of came into India and had to get off at a station in Punjab. And at that time, my grandmother died. So on the way, she died. And that sort of was a very tough situation for my parents and my siblings. And then after they did all the rites, they moved to Delhi. And at Delhi, they actually found there were lots of these things happening at that time that Hindus were given Muslim homes and Muslims were given Hindu homes. So that's what was happening in Pakistan. And this is what was happening in Delhi. So they got this terrible home, which was actually owned by a coal merchant. And it was in very bad shape and there was coal all over. So these people had to actually clean and somehow manage it. And then my father, uh, then they moved at a certain time to the refugee colony that was created at that time. And since he was a lawyer and very well versed with things in administration, and he was also part of the Congress party at that time in Ahmedabad, and he was a freedom fighter. So people said, why don't you be the leader of the refugee colony? So he was made the leader of the refugee colony. And as he was working one day, suddenly an old friend popped in. And he looked at him and said, what are you doing here? And he said, look, this is what I'm doing. I moved from Ahmedabad to here. So he said, this is not the place for you. So he said, okay, I'll come back to you. His name was Mr. Pillai. And Mr. Pillai then offered him a job in Jaipur, in Mount Abu. And he said that you will have to move from Mount Abu to Jaipur many times, but this is a job to bring the princely states into India. And you have to negotiate the deals with every princely state. So it was a very tough job because Rajasthan had the most amazing large number of princely states and all very, very, very rich Maharajas and stuff like that. So he actually did that job. And while he was in Mount Abu, that's where I was born. And the home was from a lousy room in Delhi. They moved to a beautiful home on the lake in Mount Abu, which was called the Nikki Lake. And it was actually a home of the original Brits, the commandant there. So it was beautiful and everything was provided for. And, that's where I was born. And that time he decided that he liked what he was doing. And so he decided to get into administration. And he felt that the best way to actually be able to contribute to the country would be to go into IAS. And at that time, all the old ICS officers had gone back to UK. So there was a severe lack of administrative people in the country. And therefore, he applied for a IAS at an age where they had opened up the age bracket at that time. And they said, anybody can apply. And it was not necessary that you were 25 or 30. You could apply even if you were 40 or 50. So in any case, he applied and he got into IAS. And from there, he got into IAS, those days it was called the Vindhya Pradesh. And later on, that got converted to Madhya Pradesh. So from a beautiful home in Mount Abu, we moved to a place called Shahdol, which was a one-horse town. And not even proper roads, not even water, not even taps. So, that was the kind of change you see when you were in IAS, move from one place to the other. And I started my, life there in Shahdol, and then moved on to another beautiful place called Nogong, which was again very lucky because it was again the UK person's home, and it was actually left as is, and it had some 10, 12 rooms it was like a Maharaja's home in a manner. So there was a Darbar hall and all kinds of things, and orchards and table tennis, everything. Any case, that's where we lived for a while, and that's where I started my schooling obviously in Hindi medium, and then moved on to another place called Riva. Riva was very backward, and he was the commissioner at that time in Riva. And of course, what I remember of Riva is very interesting because that's where the Maharaja of Riva, Martand Singh, had actually got himself a white tiger. And that was the first white tiger of India. And from there, many, many white tigers happened all over the various zoos in India. So he was the first one, and that he was called Mohan. And I just read an article where they were talking about Mohan and his progenies over the period of time. So, in any case, that was a very different life, and working with my father, and he's moving around all the time.
So your life particularly childhood, etc., has been like swinging from one of the best places to the not so good ones, etc. So it must have had some impact on you to be resilient, right?
Resilient and adapting to situations, adapting to new challenges. Like the challenge that I had as I was in Riva, I was studying in the school created by the Maharaja's wife, and it was Hindi medium. And then we moved to Jabalpur, where my father retired, and he wanted me to get into English medium. So I was put on a fast track course of 3 months to learn English. And then I joined a school called Christ Church School. And Christ Church was a very old, very, very well-known institution. And so that's where I did my schooling. And after that, I did my engineering also in Jabalpur, in the Jabalpur Engineering College, which was the first telecom college of India. So I did telecommunication and electronics. Electronics was added later. And that's how my interest in electronics and telecom happened. And that was the major influence. And some of my teachers were so good. Those days, that college was really considered the ideal college for telecom. And so that's where I was. But the influences were a lot from my brothers and sisters because they were all sent off to different cities to study, because there was nothing good in Jabalpur to study except engineering and some other areas, more humanities. So my brother and my sisters from Riva and Jabalpur went off to study all over. So they all did their MAs and MScs and MD, everything. So 2 of my sisters were doctors. So they all went off to these things. And I was the only person with my parents at that time in Jabalpur. And the sister who was just older than me was with me. So the influence of my brother is quite strong. And the influence of my mother and my father and my sister was very strong. That influenced me into music. That influenced me into poetry. My father was a poet, and my mother was a trained singer. My sister was a trained singer. So there was a lot of music influence. And my father used to write a poem, and my sister used to tune it. And, it was like a mushaira happening at home all the time. So that influence of culture, music, dance, all of that started. And my sister at that one particular time told me that, hey, I'm singing, why don't you learn an instrument? So she said, well, I said, I can give it a shot. So I tried to learn the tabla, and I was very unsuccessful. So then I did something very strange, which I can't do today. I learned to play the tabla by my mouth. And yeah, I could emulate a tabla perfectly.
Really?
And
Okay.
yes, perfectly. And so I actually did many performances with my sister on the stage where she was singing and I was playing the tabla with my mouth. So those kind of things are what the influences are of those days. And my father's influence of culture, art, all of that. He was a great collector of sculptures. And by the way, my first pet was a tiger rather
Oh,
than a dog. So that's very interesting. I write about it in my book also,
okay.
Just Aspire. And I had that cub as a pet with me for about a year. But unfortunately, there was those days they used to come and spray DDT for mosquitoes, and
Okay.
he ate up DDT and died.
Oh,
So
so
I was so upset that my father actually embalmed it and gave it back to me. So anyway, those are the influences. And then in Jabalpur, the great influence I had was from my brother. He was in sales and marketing. He was with
oh,
initially with Caltex and later on with ITC. So he used to keep telling me that, the future is about sales and marketing and you should learn a lot more. So he used to give me books to read. And I was a very avid book reader and I was quite a sports person. I used to play table tennis, badminton, tennis, all of those things. So he used to actually, and my father was a tennis player. So that influence was there.
okay.
And then, of course, I learned to read and understand sales and marketing. So when I was leaving college around that particular time, my mind was made up that I'm not going to go for an engineering job. Although I've learned engineering, I must do something in sales and marketing.
Okay.
And so I was totally different from all my class fellows. Everybody was applying for engineering jobs and DOT jobs and all of that. And they were applying for public sector. I said, I'm not going to do that. I applied for a sales and marketing job and didn't get an interview for 6 months. And I kept waiting. And then suddenly one day I got 3 interview calls in Delhi in the same week. And so, as luck would have it, I got all the 3 jobs. And that's when really luck played a role in my career and life.
Okay.
Because at that stage, I had 3 jobs and I decided to join DCM Data Products. And since it was an electronics company, I said, since I've done electronics, the right thing to do. And
Right
that's where I
thing.
met my co-founders. And
Yeah.
that's how we formed HCL.
So you were the one of the, I mean, 6 co-founders of HCL during those times. So what was your dream or your, I mean, the founding team's dream? I mean, did you think or did you dream that you are going to build an IBM or, that kind of a company in India?
Not at all. I mean, at that time, uh, India was a closed country. There was no exposure to anything global. Even technology imports were not allowed.
Hmm.
So when we decided to leave DCM one day, we said at that time we had started manufacturing and marketing calculators at DCM. We'd also started a program to make a computer from microprocessors. So at that time we left because we did not find a space for ourselves in DCM. They were not giving enough attention to our little company. So we left. And our dream was at that time to take the microprocessor and change the world. Very big statement, but that's what we wanted to do.
Okay.
And as we came out of DCM, we realized that it was a very tough job because there was nothing called startups then. There was nothing called angels and VCs to give you funding. So you were totally dependent on banks, etc. So with 1.86 lakhs, which we all put together, we started a little marketing company. And at that time, it was a time when there was a license Raj. So you needed a license to make a computer. And whenever we went to the government, they threw us out and said, we don't even know you who you are. So there's no way, we are going to give you any license to make anything. So we spotted a license sitting with UP government, went to them, sold the idea that we should form a joint sector company, gave them 26% equity, and formed Hindustan Computers Limited. So that's how our journey started. And we started to make computers for scientific applications and then went on to make commercial computers. And in 10 years flat, we were number one put a company in India.
So that way, despite the license range and all of those constraints that you had, you could start this joint venture with I mean, I would say that was the model, like joint ventures with the public sector company and all that. But
Yes.
despite your, I mean, people like you, as the initiatives like HCL, India really did not take off in the manufacturing sector or electronic sector. It did not become a global, at least a name, right? So, what do you think were the responsible for this? Was it the policy or the capital or something more deeper?
Well, actually, as we were growing and we were number one IT company in India, uh, McKinsey came to us and said, "You have a great product in hardware. Why don't you take it global?" So in 79, 80, we decided to go to Singapore, where I started my life there. But in 88, 89, uh, they suggested we should go to the US and set up plant there and market and manufacture computers there. It was like taking coal to Newcastle. And we started our manufacturing plant in Silicon Valley. We got a lot of orders, but we didn't realize that for selling into the US, you had to have certain certifications. And those certifications were not available to us. Our product was not designed for those certifications.
Okay.
And also, but we got a lot of orders. We had huge orders from many companies, and we could have easily taken off. But at that stage, we were left with no choice but to
Complaint with
stop
the
that.
regulations. Is it primarily a regulation issue, right? The
Yeah,
certificate.
it was certification of the power supply, which we didn't have. So, and also very large order that we had got scrapped because a company bought that company which had placed the order. So anyway, things didn't work out. We had taken a large loan from ICICI at that time to start this thing in hardware in the US. And so at that time, we had to pivot from hardware to software
Soft.
because we had no choice, because we had spent so much money, we had put up people, and we didn't have the funds to go forward. So
So
what we decided to do was to take our engineers who had great R&D capability in design and put them into labs in America. And so started our sort of our engineering software business there.
So, in a sense, I mean, not only you, but India was not yet ready for that kind of a, manufacturing or electronics or semiconductor-based industry for a variety of reasons. It could be. Is that what I get it
Yeah,
from?
you're right. We actually continued to be in hardware till the early 2000, even later 2012, till about 2011, 12.
Mhm.
But something happened in 1999 where the government went and signed the WTO agreement. And under the WTO agreement, all imports of electronics were allowed at 0%.
Okay.
And that got implemented in 2005.
Oh,
So that saw the end of a beautiful design-oriented manufacturing industry in electronics. It all died. Only the large companies like us survived. Most of the smaller and medium industries, which were in computers and electronics, they all died. And that is the biggest mistake that the government made at that time, to have signed the WTO too early. Brazil did not sign, China did not sign. So China took off in hardware and we got left behind.
oh.
Although we were ahead of China in electronics and in semiconductors. Our first semiconductor plant was set up in SCL in Mohali, and that was actually burnt down through sabotage. That is what everybody says. Our adversaries did not want us to be in semiconductors. It started much before TSMC of Taiwan.
Yeah, sometimes, we don't know what are the behind the scene activities or what happened is conspiracies or whatever, we don't know. Do you think
Yeah.
now with all this, global realignment happening and also in a way post-COVID, various things that are happening, pivoting away from China. We don't know what will happen now, of course. Is it the right time for India to emerge as a leader in manufacturing? Or are we still playing catch up?
You see, we were a very unique country at that time when this whole change took place in the laws and WTO came in. We were a design to manufacturing country. We used to design everything. And we lost that leadership position. So everybody went into software services. So IT moved from hardware to software services, from a design and manufacturing ecosystem to a services ecosystem. And so HCL also had to get into services. And when we got into services and software, we started with engineering software. And then we clearly realized we were too small at that time. Infosys and others were ahead of us. So we decided to go for a listing in the stock exchange so that we have enough funds to grow faster. So by going for a listing in year 2000, we got a lot of money and we decided to grow by acquisition. So we bought close to 17 to 20 companies, some of them as large as $1 billion companies. And so we grew our software business literally from scratch and to being the third largest software company in the country today. So we are a $14 billion software company today. So you can imagine from 1.86 lakhs, it's a journey of $14 billion.
So, I mean, despite all this, you can call it this setbacks or pivoting from one to the other. It's a success story, right? And one
Oh,
sense, yeah.
yeah, it's a fantastic
Fantastic
success.
success story. So, do you think now coming back to the main issue? I mean, you are particularly your heart is in design and manufacturing, semiconductor, etc. Do you think the current policies, such as the production linked incentives and fabrication incentives, etc., are in the we are on the right track to be take on the lead in
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, actually, last 5 to 7 years, I've been involved with the government in writing literally the electronic policy at every stage of every government.
Yeah.
I started helping write the policy in 1999, and continued till even today, where I advise the government on the policy. But what's happened is that the last 5 to 7 years, the new government, when they came in, they realized, and COVID made it happen more than anything else, that we must be in electronics and we must be in semiconductors. In a manner, one of my uh, very, very close people to me in Bangalore, Dr. Seshagiri, used to have a very nice statement. He used to say, hardware and software are two sides of the same coin. So we missed the hardware story at that time. I remember meeting a minister about 15 years ago, and I went to meet him at his home and I said, I want you to help us recreate the electronics and hardware industry. And he says, Kya zarurat hai? What is the need to do it?
Yeah.
Let China do hardware, we'll do software, which is a very big mistake. So we are not now in a catch-up mode, and I think all that we have been able to do is to create large manufacturing in India, scale it up, but our value addition is very poor. So we do not do design to manufacture as yet in a big way. That is where our opportunity lies, because we have many great designers in India for semiconductors. We have the largest design ecosystem, but we don't use it for India. We do it for exports. So one of the strategies that I have suggested to the government is that now you're setting up semiconductor plants, also give incentives for design and create hundreds of design companies so that India's semiconductor requirement can be met by our own products.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, continuing the same conversation with your other initiative, that is the EPIC Foundation. So it has taken a bold step to, I would say, revive or, in fact, reclaim. Let me put it that way: reclaim the electronic manufacturing and design in India. So, what was the tipping point for you to initiate or start the EPIC Foundation?
Well, actually, about 4 years ago, me and my co-founder Arjun, we were sitting around and saying, look, we did so much of electronics and product design, etc. in India, and nothing much is happening. So let us do something from the outside of the government. And yes, we can keep advising the government, but let's also do an initiative of our own. So we created Epic Foundation on the basis of making India a hardware product nation in electronics. And we felt that India must move from services mindset to a product mindset. And that is where the world will recognize us in a very different way. We are a leader in software, but we are nobody in design and products. So we have given away that position to China. So that's why we started Epic. And our objective was to influence policy as a major area, policy for design to manufacture, policy for repair of electronic products so that we can save e-waste, and many other policy situations with different parts of the central government and state governments. And influence state governments to also support the design to manufacture concept. And that was part one. Part two was to take some products and design it ourselves and use it as a reference point. And thirdly, we were also looking at how we can help startups in this area. So we actually have 40, 50 startups who have signed up with us and take our advice on how to go to market, how to design the product, how to manufacture the product, how to take it global. All that advice we provide.
Yeah.
So it's a not-for-profit organization, but we do some bit of consulting for startups where we actually charge cost plus basis, so that we can cover our overheads in helping them. Otherwise, we don't have the manpower to do it on our own totally. And the whole organization is created through volunteers. So we have got about 20 odd volunteers between Bangalore and Delhi, and some in Pune. And we work with these volunteers. And these are all experienced people. We have close to about, I would say, 600 man-years of experience among all of our volunteers. And so they together work with each of these areas and help create this.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned, of course, the different names that, Sheshgiri and Arjun, and it's such a small world because I worked with Sheshgiri because he was on the board of my other institution. And of course,
Oh,
yeah, I've known Sheshgiri very well. I have also learned a lot from him. He, in a
he
way,
was
is
a
one of the
fantastic.
architects, right?
He created the electronics industry in India to quite an extent, the software industry in India through NIC. And he actually was an advisor to HCL post-retirement.
Right.
So every month or every 2 months, he used to come to Delhi and give us a lecture on where should we go.
Yeah. Thank you. So the point I wanted to also mention here is you talked about, Epic Foundation having some 20 volunteers, etc. In a way, I would say it aligns with the concept of, the gig economy, ride sharing, etc. You have spare time, right? Our spare car is not used, etc. And then you use it for, so like that, there are minds, people who
We
have time,
wanted
who
some
want to
great
do
minds
something.
to
Yeah.
be part of this,
Part of it, right?
people who have actually worked 30, 40 years, have the
That's right.
experience, want to give back to the country, and those are the people who are volunteers.
So we need to connect the minds as well. We have to create a gig economy of minds, our
Correct. It's a very different concept.
this
Yeah.
concept we have to start probably. So now with Epic and all your, involvement with the government, etc. Do you think that even now what we hear as common people or the common languages, make in India rather design in India? Because design in India is more about, I would say, creating that intellectual property, right?
Yes. Big difference. Big difference.
Big
As a
difference.
matter of fact, for too long in the last 5 to 8 years, the government has been using the word make in India. But I heard a very different speech of the Prime Minister in the last few years, where he started to move very clearly towards design and make in India. And yesterday's speech was really a big, big directional change for India that he talked about. His lecture was, of course, very, very long, but he had a specific segment where he talked about technology sovereignty. And he said that we must be self-sufficient and self-reliant in technology.
Yes.
And he actually said, youngsters, come forward and make our own operating system, make our own social media products. So the thinking is changing because of this whole Trump business and the unipolar world business. And you never know when sanctions will hit us for everything. So it's important for us to have technology sovereignty and have our own products and our own designs, because the challenge that I'm seeing going forward is that each country is becoming self-preserving and don't want to export technology. China doesn't want to export magnets. Europe does not want to export quantum computers. America does not want to export NVIDIA chips. All that is happening. And under this environment, I think the Prime Minister's thought process is correct, that we must become self-reliant and we should create our own. I mean, today, one of the companies in India, they were connected with Russian oil, and Microsoft switched off their systems there. And these people were left without having even an email to work with. Just imagine the impact that it could have of sanctions.
Yeah, in a way, the whole globalization, etc., mantra has changed to now.
It's dead. Globalization is dead.
Dead. Let's see what happens. Anyway, so do you think, coming back to this question of, or rather, not missing the bus again with reference to manufacturing semiconductor chips, etc., do you think that we are now on the right direction and you will realize your dream of, design and manufacturing of chips in India, being a leader in that?
I feel that the government has been doing all the right things till now. But the next big step they need to take is the design part, which they have not yet done. So we formed a task force on this previous year, and we gave recommendations, but they have not yet been implemented. But I'm told that it is being seriously looked at. And I think after this wake-up call recently from Trump and the government and the Prime Minister talking about self-reliance, a lot of this will change. And I think it'll change for the better. And one of the things that also I have done in the last few years is that about 20 of us got together and 2 years ago, and we said, where should India go? What should be the direction for India in terms of our economic policy? Because we are still struggling at $2,500 per person GDP. And so we are, stuck there. How do we get out of this? So we looked at what Korea did, Thailand did, China did, what the US did in the past. And we clearly came to a conclusion that the only way this can be done is by moving from just services orientation to a product orientation. And so we felt that R&D is the answer to India's future. India must invest in R&D. Till now, India has been investing in R&D in the government. Private sector is not investing in it.
That's true.
So we actually, this think tank that we created, we made many discussions with the government and lot of inputs we got from different people. We had some 3 off-sites with 100 people each. And we got researchers and educationalists and government and industry to come together. And we finally managed to get the government to agree that R&D is the future of the country. And science and technology is the only way for us to go forward. This is something that happened in the US in 1944.
Yes.
Whenever Bush, who was the chief scientist, he wrote a manifesto where he said science and technology is where America should go. And that's for DARPA got formed, NSF got formed, NASA got formed, and finally Silicon Valley. So we said we need to do that major change in India. And so government came up with a policy statement a year ago, and that is now under implementation, that they've allocated 1 lakh crore for 50 years at zero interest to start investing into R&D in private sector. And they want to nudge the private sector to start R&D.
Yeah, India is one of those countries, I mean, compared to any other, forget about developed, even BRIC countries, etc., where the percentage of GDP that goes into R&D is very small. That's one, and history has many lessons for all of us.
Very small.
Yeah, we don't do that. And similarly, again,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
talking
So
about,
actually, this is now getting implemented.
mm, that's
It is
good.
now getting implemented. I think you're having some trouble with your internet. Ah, now I can
I
see.
don't think
Because
so.
your
Yeah,
face
yeah.
got, yeah,
Can you
your,
hear me?
now I can hear you, but I couldn't see you properly.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Your face was frozen.
Okay, okay, maybe. So coming back to this, I mean, another initiative or your involvement is with the Nudge Institute in
Yes.
Bangalore, etc. And you have also been doing all this, lots of philanthropic work, giving back to society, both at the policy level as well as, other charity work, etc. So my question to you is, do you think that, philanthropy has a big role to play in nation building?
Extremely big role to play. Because historically, Indians, unless there were few people like the Birlas, etc., there were very few people who actually gave back. And the technology industry, when it took off in India, they started to do a lot of philanthropy. So you can see Shiv Nadar, you can see Azim Premji, all these people, Narayana Murthy, everybody started to work on, this area of giving back to society and doing it in a very large way. So all this has started to happen majorly because of the technology industry. And that's what's happened in the US. In the US, people would give money during their lifetime. In India, people would give money after they were dead. So that change took place. And
And also
therefore,
taxation, right? In the US, much of
taxation
these
was a very
foundations,
major reason in the US. Yeah, in India, that was not the reason. So
that's
I think all that is quite wonderful. I've been working with I've had many hats I've worn since I came away from HCL. I started into education. I was chairman of a couple of IITs. I started triple IT in Naya Raipur. I converted the one of the institutes to create an Industry 4.0 education program. During when I started IIT Hyderabad from scratch, I changed the direction of IITs. I did something which was very unique. We created a entrepreneurship program inside the institute, and we also created another program which was, I think, the most influential program for that institute, which is where we got students to go beyond learning one subject. And I used to say to my director, I do not want nerds coming out of this institute. So we created something called fractals. We had 36 little subjects. It could be music, it could be astronomy, it could be drama, it could be literature, it could be humanities. And each student had to select 3 to 4 of these fractals. So the whole objective was to create a student which came out as a well-rounded student. And I've always had this belief that uh, people should not be single focused. And therefore, I call it people with range. And I call them rangists. I talk about it in my book also, where I believe what is very essential for human beings that come out of education to know beyond what they have to study for. So let's say you're an electronics engineer, you should also know music, you should also know reading, you should not also be interested in leisure. So I call it a T. Top of the T is where you have all kinds of other things, and the bottom of the T is where you have deep knowledge of something else. And these ranges are very important. For example, you look at my life, I mean, I've done all kinds of things. I've been a sports person, I've written a book, I've taught entrepreneurship in IIT Hyderabad, I learned music, I sing very regularly. All these are things that make you a different, complete human being. And giving back to society is a very important part of that. For example, I work with a lot of startups. I personally invested in more than 70 odd startups, and I mentor some of them. So all this gives you a lot of joy. It is not just work anymore.
yeah.
It is a lot of happiness. When I sing, I get happiness. When I work with startups, I get a lot of happiness. So, that is where life should be. Nudge Institute was one of those things where I got quite impressed with the whole idea of removing poverty from India. So I work very closely with them. Similarly, I have another uh, NGO which is called Save Life Foundation, and we work on reducing accidents on the road. So 1.5 lakh people die every year on the
We are
roads.
one of
So
the
how
highest.
do we work? Yeah, so we work on that. We all work on Population Foundation. So again, that is there. Then I have my own charitable foundation called Swayam. And from that, I do what is called my book is called Just Aspire. And I'll give you a background of that too. But I started an Aspire scholarship and 3 years ago. And I take in 28 students every year. And they are put into IITs and good engineering colleges with everything paid for. Education, hostel, mess, everything paid for people who can't afford to get into. So these are the kind of things which now I do, which make me happy. And then giving back to the country through many jobs that I do for the government. So today I am chairing the National Quantum Mission, and we are creating and working towards a totally different technology which will make India very good for the world.
In fact, I was about to ask you about your role in the National Quantum Mission and how, I mean, it's of course quantum mechanics or quantum computers are the new frontiers of progress
Yes.
and technology. So I wanted to ask you about that. Where do you think that India is heading in that? Are we on the now right on the right track and, with the right momentum in quantum computers?
Actually, it's still 1.5 years old when I started out. And we are working on 4 areas. We are working on creating a quantum computer. We are working on quantum communications, where we can make all our cyber security quantum secure. And then we are working on sensors, which can be of great value for navigation and also checking on what is under the ground, what is under the water. The quantum sensors are much, much better than normal sensors. And then, of course, working on materials and which materials would be good to make products for tomorrow. So a lot of work has gone on. Close to 700 odd scientists are involved in this project. And we have a lot of startups also who have come up in this area, where we are giving the most aggressive software package to people. We give people up to 30 crores per startup, which has never been heard of in India. So it's a large project. It's about 6,000 crore project. And I think it's a very fast changing area. So keeping up is not easy.
I know.
But we
That is
have
one
targets
thing
for
with
each area, and
technology,
we are
right?
working on that.
One of the things with technology is even as consumers, we can't keep up with technology. And I mean, even with
Yes.
all of this thing development. So for a country or a society or industry to keep up, it's challenging, but at the same time, I would say opportunity, right? I mean, when you are talking about, COVID or even the current scenario, I would say we need to find opportunities in crisis.
Yes.
And that's
As a
what
matter
the
of
world
fact,
has done.
we are very well tuned to working better in crisis.
Yeah.
1991, we changed the country completely.
Well,
Again, COVID, we proved that we could do things that were not possible.
well,
So now this new challenge of Trump and all that is happening. It's very clear that we are on our own.
we should be on our own, etc.
Yeah. We are
So,
a large country, and
yeah.
the biggest benefit of this country is the mines.
And
1.4
help
billion
create,
mines work for us.
yeah, we need to help create means shape those minds and then use those minds, right? Connecting the
Yes.
minds is the main,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you have written your book, Aspire, which is also your personal narrative as well as a professional, I would say, mission. So, if you were to leave a message to youngsters today, what would be that one message?
See, that's the message is in the
Book.
title of the book, which is Just Aspire.
Yes.
Because this is something that I learned from Dr. C.K. Prahlad when he was used to teach me in Michigan. And he always used to say, A is greater than R. So if you have the aspiration, resources will happen, which is exactly the HCL story. 1.86 lakhs to 14 billion, no license to a computer company. All that shows that if you have the aspiration, you can do it. So that's what I want to say to everybody in the country, whether it's a student or it's an entrepreneur or it's a state or it's a country. If we continue to aspire, there's nothing beyond us.
So from HCL days to Epic and all that, so what you would like the future generations to remember you as or for?
Well, actually, whether I get remembered or not is not relevant to me. What is more relevant is that I have been able to do things that I wanted to do. So, one of my friends who's in the movies, uh, he asked me a question one day when I was, interviewing for my book. And he asked me a question. He says, Ajay, if you were not in technology, what would you be? And my answer was, I would have loved to be a singer. So, these are the kind of self-actualization which is more important than leaving something behind.
That's
sure, I will leave some legacy behind, but that is,
just a
not that,
byproduct.
yeah, byproduct.
Yeah.
Self-actualization is more important.
Like the Maslow's hierarchy, that self-actualization is at the top, and it should be for all of us, right? Individually, whatever
Yes,
level you go to, that's true.
that's right. So my book has done very extremely well. It's into the second edition, which we created for students. It's now earlier it was a hardcover. Now we have a paperback version, and it's a bestseller. So it's done very well, and I want to leave that message for entrepreneurs that it's entrepreneurs that will take India forward.
That's true.
And it's youngsters who have all the, gumption to make things happen.
I know. The courage, the conviction, all of that has to be there, right?
Yes.
So to aspire, of course, and then to make it happen. So
Yes.
my sort of final question to you is, we have talked about, I mean, we started with your family moving during the independence, and then, we are already, what is your, I would say, vision for India for its 100th year? India at 100, if you were to
I
say.
want India to be self-reliant completely. Today, technology, economics, and growth is all connected. So if we can have our own technology in many, many areas, which is really what we have been working on for 2 years, I think that is where we should go.
Yeah, end of the, I mean, when you say technology, it's nothing but know-how and knowledge, etc. It ties back to that same thing. End of the day, it's the mind that matters, mind that
Yes.
shapes everything, Yeah.
Yes.
So if we can focus on that, I mean, as a country or as individuals or as families, if we can focus on that, I guess your vision that, if we could.
India has to be a product nation. That's my dream.
Yes,
And that's there in my first chapter of my new version of my book, which is the soft copy. The
Yes,
paperback.
paper.
And you will find that first chapter introduction, I have written my dream for India.
So, are you positive that we will be there, at least are almost there by when India is 100? We may not be there, but at least India will be there.
India will be there and India will happen.
Happen. Okay.
I have no doubts. If we use our brains, that is what I feel. We must use our brains towards what we can design and make rather than just do services. Too much focus on services is not good for the country.
That's true.
And today, IT services facing solid headwinds due to AI and automation. Every software company is having trouble. No new jobs are available. So we got to go back to basics. We need to be going back to doing engineering. We need to be able to do mechanical engineering, electronics engineering, civil engineering. India needs to grow through designing and making.
That's true. We have missed some opportunities. We have, of course, grabbed some opportunities, and we are here, as you said, about designing or manufacturing electronics. I mean, I will end with a personal note in the sense my brother's an electronics engineer, and he started a small company called Chip Tech in 1980, early 1980.
Oh,
As
okay,
part of, he was working for BEL as an ancillary unit. So there is a
okay.
personal connect to me when you say that, it should be there and all that. So, but anyway, things change. So, on that note of aspiration and confidence about India and about ourselves, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I hope everything goes well this time around and we will be able to publish it soon. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
much. Okay.
Good to be with you.